The Mass Effect series is arguably one of the most prominent and special RPGs in video game history. What Bioware was able to do throughout this trilogy is set the bar for incredible storytelling that continued throughout multiple games while still paying respect to the choices players made. It crafted together narratives in ways games hadn't before, making a truly this is your own experience type of game that games like The Walking Dead could only dream of doing years later. To see them preserved and remastered is truly a sight to behold, finally making the first game a bit more modern and a great entry point into revisiting or starting the series for the first time. But before we jump into this review, make sure you hit that subscribe button and hit the bell icon to stay up to date whenever I upload another review. I'll also be breaking this review down a little bit differently by games instead of the usual categories, so with that said, let's jump into this review starting with Mass Effect 1. Being the oldest game in this series, I was excited to start this title first as it's arguably the one that's aged the worst. This was originally released back in 2007 and this is where Bioware was finding its footing with the series. In retrospect, Mass Effect 1 is incredibly ambitious and its story immediately throws you into the chaos. You play as Commander Shepard, a human space commander whose mission quickly gets derailed, leading them to a position of power. You find yourself in the middle of a galactic war where you're tasked to gather forces from all sorts of alien species to help tackle an oncoming threat unlike any other. On top of all these intergalactic threats, you're being told this developing story that evolves with every conversation and decision made. Choosing to speak to one character over another can result in you completely missing one character or no longer being able to talk to a specific character. This level of in-depth writing was amazing for its time, and even playing now, it's impressive to see. Some elements don't hold up as well, like romance-specific writing. While it's cool that these options were here as early as Mass Effect 1, there are some questionable written responses in these moments that feel like they're part of this era of early 2000s writing. It certainly got better over time, but replaying this now for the first time since it came out, especially alongside the sequels back to back, it's apparent that Bioware had an idea of what the series was going for, but this wasn't as great as its sequels. For example, the time it takes to get through the Citadel intro and actually get your own ship was something that felt dragged out the second time around. Nevertheless, the character creator, which allowed you to play as either a man or woman with your own sexual orientation based on the choices you make in the game, was unheard of at the time, and no doubt resonated even more with players because of it. Commander Shepard truly felt like your own personal character, whether they looked like someone else's character or not, and that was all in thanks to the choices you would make. That gets translated over to the gameplay, where Mass Effect 1 gets its biggest improvements. New to its RPG mechanics is the point system that ditches the 60 points from the original game to the leaner 30-point system. I opted for this new option that made progression with weapons and skills feel better paced out over the campaign in my opinion. You're essentially updating less frequently, but when you do so, the impact is more noticeable, and I appreciated that. There's a handful of quality of life improvements overall with this entry. The HUD is more clean looking, the class-based weapon restrictions have been removed, and the controls, man, the controls, they've been vastly improved. Now don't get me wrong, Mass Effect 1 still feels and relatively looks like it was released back in 2007, but now it has a fresh coat of paint on it and the controls are actually pretty good. The Mako, which was a big headache to control in the original game, is quite manageable now. It hasn't made me like these sections of exploration any more than I did back in 2007, but at least now I'm not raging over the control. This is also most apparent in the combat. Shepard's aim left a lot to be desired back in 2007. The controls were cumbersome and it was clear that Bioware wanted to make an RPG first and a shooter second. With this remaster, things are much more bearable. Aiming is a lot more precise and managing my powers while shooting feels doable. Bioware did mention that AI would be smarter too, but from the looks of it, I'm not sure I agree with that. Enemies still seem lost from time to time and I've seen a few NPCs just walk into things. On a brighter note, the presentation has seen a major upgrade here. Like I mentioned earlier, this isn't going to feel like a 2021 game all of a sudden, but it's more modern looking than what we had before. Textures have been improved, screen resolution has been upgraded, there are higher frame rates depending on your platform, and the color grading has been changed up. The latter will probably not vibe with everybody, especially with hardcore fans of the series that opt to play Mass Effect at least once a year. In my experience, it's made a lot of scenes look better, but some scenes that hit hard in the original playthrough don't hit as hard now, while other scenes that didn't originally feel that impactful now do. It's a catch-22 of sorts that won't work for everyone. There are a few oddities with how the light reflects on characters too, and that mileage will vary depending on the scene. While I really like the upgrades overall, there's no fix for some of the stiff animation work here, like hiding behind cover and the eyeballs of some of these characters. That's just the fact that this is a remaster and not a remake. Voice work continues to be well done, though that was a bar set really high back in 2007. Without dwelling on it too much, Mass Effect continues to be one of the best voice-performed games in the industry. This remaster doesn't lose any of that in this upgrade, and those that skip the dialogue should most certainly be bonked. My overall takeaway with this remastered starting point is that now I have no trouble telling someone to get into the series without having to preface that they have to deal with some dated game design choices and visuals. Again, this isn't a remake, so my expectations are tempered, but as a remastered Mass Effect game, it is a much more bearable and worthwhile experience, perfect for anyone jumping into Mass Effect for the first time. The jump from Mass Effect 1 to 2 is apparent because at the time, so much improved when both were originally released. The writing got better as the foundation had been set for the series, the combat got improved significantly, not to the point that Mass Effect became an iconic third-person shooter, but enough for it to complement the RPG mechanics that were much more the star of this video game-centered show. So what's changed with this remaster? Well, not all that much. The purpose of this entire remastered collection was to unify all the 3 games to feel like an encompassing package. Mass Effect 2 and 3 for the most part already felt like a pair game design wise. The major changes came from Mass Effect 1, and that's where you'll notice the most change. In Mass Effect 2, the more visible change is, coincidentally, the visuals. While the color grading isn't as messed up in this entry, the texture work has been improved both in the environments and with the character models. This is more in line with some of the mod work done by the community for the PC release. Mass Effect 2 continues to be my favorite game in the series as it hits the right spot of being modern enough both in terms of gameplay and writing, without really dropping the ball on either or. Let's just rip the band-aid off on this one. Mass Effect 3's ending is, a sour note for the series. And honestly, it's a bit of a bummer how this concluded, considering how much love and attention was put into the player's choice in the first 2 games. In many ways, it didn't seem like Bioware respected the design philosophy set out by the first 2 games, but equally I think the player base could have reacted a bit better as well. Regardless, the ending is still here and well, it can be better, there's not much else to say. Nevertheless, Mass Effect 3 did elevate the series in other ways, mostly the feeling of combat, and while that's preserved here, once again the most noticeable upgrade is the visuals. Now this, along with the rest of the games, are being released for PS4 and Xbox One. There's a lot of versions of these platforms, including the next-gen consoles. Luckily, EA released this handy chart that demonstrates the abilities of the consoles. I opted for the Xbox Series X for my playthrough, which outside of the PC release, offers the best performance on the console side. Because of how backwards compatibility works on the PS5 and the Series X, Xbox actually had the lead in this case. The Series X is able to tap into the FPS boost mechanics on the system and double the frame rate of the collection while being in the performance mode, hitting 1440p at 120 frames per second. There are some occasional dips here and there, but at such a high frame rate, the performance is quite impressive. On PS5, that's locked to 1440p 60 because the console essentially runs it as a PS4 Pro since there isn't any custom code on the console. The performance is great, but I wouldn't blame anyone for feeling a bit jaded if they're on a PS5. Generally speaking, the Series X sees a much more consistent performance in resolution mode, as well as faster loading times than the PS5. As far as bugs go, there weren't that many. There was some occasional flickering of some assets, but not enough to ruin the game. These were likely just minor bugs that'll be patched out in the future. While Mass Effect 2 and 3 get minor upgrades in this remaster, the difference for Mass Effect 1 is night and day. Having played through all of Mass Effect 1 and 10 hours of Mass Effect 2 and 3, it's made clear that this collection was made with Mass Effect 1 in mind, while leaving the other 2 as texture upgrade bonuses. Nevertheless, the target goal of bringing all 3 games together to a more modern parody is successful. While not all the changes are bound to sit well with veterans of the series, for the most part, the work here is for the better. Bioware has crafted a masterful trilogy of games well worth playing in 2021, and these remasters make the trip a much more accessible venture for both veterans and newcomers alike. If you've never played this series before, I can't recommend it enough, and for those that already know how great the series is, you now have a new avenue to experience it. Thank you so much for watching my review. If you liked the video, then let me know with a thumbs up and a comment down below. Have you played the Mass Effect series before? And if not, are you picking this collection up and giving it a shot? I'm curious to see how many people are buying this as veterans who just want the new version versus newcomers wanting to jump in. Anyway, I gotta get back to playing Aerial Knights and Biomutant for review. Those will be the next reviews you see over the course of the next week. But until then, I'll talk to you guys in the comments down below or over on my Discord server. Join with the link in the description, and I'll see you there.